Young Guns, 8 players under the age of 25 who just signed massive new contracts within the NHL. These guys and these deals are the best way to assure yourself a future in today's cap-hungry NHL. Or is it? When you are betting on these young players, some proven and some not so proven, you are always taking a bit of a risk. But these are the contracts that can turn around a franchise and make you a Stanley Cup contender for years to come. Let's talk about Tkachuk, Laine, Sergachev, Stutzle, Thomas, Kyrou, Norris, and Thompson. Why are these 8 players going to change their franchises? Here's why. When I say change a franchise, it can be for the better or the worst. These are massive deals with massive terms, with massive payouts, and they can end up being the next Leon Draisaitl deal, Nathan MacKinnon, or John Tavares before both MacKinnon signs his extension and Tavares signed his extension with the Leafs, or they can end up being the next Jeff Skinner. And that wouldn't be so good. Let's pull up the names and let's take a look at the contracts, shall we? Tkachuk signs the largest deal with $9.5 million over 8 years at 24. He's a winger. Why do we put up their draft positions? Because draft capital matters for young players. When teams invest high capital into them, they expect a return. So if you don't think teams aren't swayed by the draft capital, even if it's as long as 6 or 7 years ago for some of these players, you would be wrong. Draft capital matters. Position matters because we know defensemen are the scarcest of the positions, not goaltender included. We know that centers are hyper valuable and necessary to win a Stanley Cup in today's NHL. And we know elite wingers are only getting better, but there's a lot of them and they are a key cog to the team, but they definitely are not as important as centermen or defensemen in the equation. Term matters as well too. The longer the term, the riskier the deal or the bigger the payoff. So as I said, Tkachuk at $9.5 million and $76 million as a deal. Patrick Laine signs a 4-year deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets at a value of $8.7 and $34 million. Mikhail Sergachev signs an $8.5 million deal. 8 years in length for the 25-year-old defenseman. Tim Stutzle, or Jimmy Stutzle, as his buddy Brady Tkachuk likes to call him. Jimmy and Timmy sign in at $8.3 million and 67 total. The youngest player on this list at 21, Robert Thomas, comes in at an extension of 8.1, matching teammate and line mate, or at least future line mate, I'm sure, in Jordan Kyrou, because you don't go paying a winger $8.1 million if you don't expect him to ascend to the first line permanently. And then you have Josh Norris in at $8 million with the Ottawa Senators and Tage Thompson looking to help the Buffalo Sabres turn around with the likes of Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, and many other prospects in that system. Now, before we talk about the value of these contracts, we have to take a look at the stats these guys have produced. Matthew Tkachuk is the only one to have played 82 games. Patrick Laine had a little bit of an injury-riddled season last year. Josh Norris, same thing, but everybody else comes in over 70, which is what you're looking for from a player. Big highlights and stats to look at on this list is the fact that Tkachuk leads the way with 104 points, but then we all know goals are a premium, aren't they? Goals are very hard to come across in the NHL, so Josh Norris and Tage Thompson, even though they're the lowest paid on this list, 35 and 38 goals respectively, and Josh Norris 35 goals in 66 games. Oh baby, that is some production that you are looking at. And then after there, you look at the typical balance players like Stutzle, Thomas, and Kyrou. Now, the interesting thing is to look at Tim Stutzle. Only 58 points for Tim Stutzle, but again, the hyper age ceiling, young, 21 years old. They are really betting on this guy to grow into his deal, a la Jack Hughes. And then Mikhail Sergachev as a defenseman, 38 points. Now, highlighting the advanced stats category, goals above replacement. This is the way you rate a player in all categories: offense, defense, power play, penalty kill, contribution to his team, scoring, goals. And you'll notice that Matthew Tkachuk stands alone again at 24, one of the best players in the NHL with a guard that is just ungodly, out of this world. But then you take a look at guys like Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Josh Norris, and Tage Thompson. That is nothing to shrug your shoulders at. And Tim Stutzle, 11, very, very impressive for the young man, but highlighting the fact that Mikhail Sergachev, a defenseman, 2.4, and Patrick Laine, 0.4. Replaceable level player, average NHL player, according to this statistic. Then we take a look at EVD, which is ranking their 5-on-5 defensive prowess, and young players, they take a long time to learn the defensive side of the game. It's the hardest part of the game. It's the toughest part to buy into. They're oozing with talent, but it takes a lot of intelligence to play on the defensive side of the puck. And what will you notice? There are only 2 players that are positive in this category. That is Matthew Tkachuk, and that is Tim Stutzle. Tkachuk is a polarizing player, but it is very key and easy to see why he got a $9.5 million deal, and he stands alone on top of the mountain of these unbelievable players. Patrick Laine, you wouldn't expect anything less, would you? Negative 6.7 defensively, not contributing on the defensive side of the puck. And then players who are in transition or learning as they grow through the league, Thomas, Kyrou, Norris, these guys are going to need to be able to pick it up. But we have noted on this channel before that St. Louis, being as talented as they are, both offensively and defensively, that's a little bit of a head scratcher for me on that one. Tage Thompson, it makes perfect sense. Buffalo has been hot garbage for the last 15 years. They're trying. They've got a great prospect pool, but Buffalo Sabres fans, until I see them do it on the ice, I can't really go back on 15 years of mediocrity. So let's hope some of these prospects, led by Thompson up front, end up turning it around. Now, when we're comparing contracts, you have to take a look at the comps. You need to look at comparable players out there. Matthew Tkachuk, because he stands alone at $9.5 million. There are several players we need to take a look at here. Kucherov, Barkov, Kaprizov, these are the underpaid guys. Their value is very close to Matthew Tkachuk's value, or right at it, and these guys are paying off in spades. Kucherov is the prototype for this one. That is what you were hoping Matthew Tkachuk turns into. They're totally different players, but you're hoping he returns the consistency that Kucherov returned for the Bolts for a long time for the Florida Panthers. Correctly paid players, Ovechkin, Point, and Gaudreau. These are guys, in my opinion, who are paid exactly the way they should be paid on here. And again, if Tkachuk plays like these guys for the next 5 to 6 years, he will have paid off. And then overpaid players, you got to be careful. These contracts aren't all foolproof. Stone, Ben, Sagan, Eichel. At one point, Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan, there's no way I thought these guys could fall off a cliff before their 35th birthday, and they did, and they did early, in my opinion. Mark Stone got the bag from Vegas. He's a talented goal scorer, but I do think he's overpaid. And Jack Eichel, I see all the talent, but I just really haven't seen the $10 million worth coming in. And then Jeff Skinner, of course, this is the nightmare scenario, pure hot garbage contract. Mikhail Sergachev and his comparable players, Heiskanen, Makar, and Yossi, all underpaid. These are Norris candidates or Norris winners. You cannot overpay for a defenseman, in my opinion, if they are going to perform this way. When Bernsey and Carlson got the bag back in the day, they were worth it. And even guys like Brent Burns right now, Erik Karlsson, they're still holding some value. They may be overpaid, but elite defensemen aren't easy to come by. And these are 3 guys who are being paid like Mikhail Sergachev that are just booming. And then you've got Pietrangelo, Hamilton, Chabot, and Trouba. They are correctly paid, in my opinion. And then Oliver Ekman Larsson and Darnell Nurse, I believe, are overpaid. Although if Nurse bounces back, he can bump back into the correctly paid. I flip-flop on the guy. He's a very talented player. He just had a tough year last year. Now, ask yourself a question. Take a look at the comparable players and then take a look at the name Mikhail Sergachev. One of these things is not like the other, and other than Oliver Ekman Larsson, you can give me any other defenseman on that list over Mikhail Sergachev. This is a banana sandwich contract. I have no idea what they were thinking paying him this deal, but at the end of the day, massive talent in Sergachev. Defensemen don't grow on trees. He's played in the NHL for 5 seasons already. He is a wily veteran, so young, yes, but a lot of miles under his boots. Give me any other name on this list, though. Then Laine, Stutzle, Thomas, and Kyrou, their pay is all within a margin of error of each other, so we'll put them together. Comparable players in this category, Crosby and Draisaitl, both underpaid. You can't pay Sidney Crosby enough, in my opinion. He is a top 5 player in the world. Sid the Kid is still hyper valuable and is never disappointed when healthy. Correctly paid, Forsberg, Zibanejad, Aho, the other Tkachuk, Brady, and Hurdle. These guys are well enough paid in the same category as the 4 on the left. And the overpaid guys here are Duchesne, Voracek, and Wheeler. But Duchesne, Voracek, and Wheeler have a very big difference between the guys on the left, and that is they were a little bit older when they got their contracts. So when I take a look at this list for Stutzle, Thomas, and Kyrou, I think they're pretty safe players. Laine, he's a one-trick pony, but it's a good trick. Who would you like to have on this list? Let me know down below. Before we get into Thompson and Norris, please take a second to go down below, smash that thumbs up for Coach Ryan D, subscribe, join our channel, and have a big shout out to all of our members here in our membership tier. Thank you for being here. Every single one of you. The content is going to start rolling now because it is September. We are heating up in training camp. We are getting juicy stories coming out of the NHL. And I do love to talk about some young guns. So let's keep going with Thompson and Norris. Lots of comparables here in this category because now as you get a little bit lower, just under that $8 million threshold, there's a lot of players in the NHL you can take a look at. Hughes, Barzell, Landeskog, and Kyle Connor. These guys are all underpaid. They took deals that you were hoping Norris and Thompson turn into. These guys took deals that were a little bit of a stretch at the time they got it, and now not only are they playing into their deal, but they are overplaying into their deal. And when you're under $8 million, you have a lot of ceiling, a lot of headroom to grow into there because players in this category, whether they're the comparables or Norris and Thompson themselves, have an ability to grow into a $10, $11 million player that you're paying under $8 million bucks. That's pretty banging if you ask me. Players that are paid correctly: Fiala, Suzuki, Couturier, Hischier, and Svechnikov. So these guys absolutely correctly paid. Lower risk on Norris and Thompson, just like there's lower risk on anybody in this category just because the dollars are under $8 million. Guys who are overpaid: Logan Couturier, Kuznetsov, and Rhino Johansson. Johansson made all the sense in the world. I can't believe this guy ended up where he ended up. He's fine, but he is definitely massively overpaid in my opinion. Kuznetsov, I really struggled. I could have put him into correctly paid, but I felt like I needed to round out this category. I flip-flop on him. He is a big important piece of the Capitals, but I'd rather have him at 6.5, 7. So really splitting hairs. Logan Couturier, again, I can't believe this guy is in this category either. When he signed this deal, he was the future of the Sharks. He was a banging player. He looked like a top Canadian contributor, looked like he was Olympic bound. Yeah, there's no Olympics, but still looked like a guy that was going to be a staple on Team Canada into his 30s. And he just ended up falling off, unfortunately. So you're hoping Norris and Thompson don't follow suit of these guys. Now, we've got to talk about the attributes of each one of these players because they're unique in the way they contribute to their teams in the game. Tkachuk, this man's elite. He's proven he's elite. He has points out his points. He's got leadership. This is a guy that's going to wear a C and an A for a very long time in his career. He puts up assists like crazy and he has grit. This guy is tough as tough comes, and you just can't teach that. At the end of the day, I've said this to the players I've coached. I've said this to any other player that goes to junior camps. You can tell by age 13 if the player's got grit and if he's got grind and if he's got sandpaper behind him. If he doesn't by that age, he probably isn't going to grow into it. And a guy like Tkachuk, an agitator like Tkachuk, it is worth its weight in gold. Never mind you add the elite scoring and the elite points of a Matthew Tkachuk, plus that size. His teammates love him. You just hate playing against them. Patrick Laine, he's a goal scorer. That's it. Other than that, he has to outscore his problems on the ice. He's a challenge with work ethic at times. Sometimes he is a challenge in the room. Sometimes he is a challenge anywhere but the top of the circle, releasing snappers and clappers that go Bardowski. Sergachev, scarcity at the position is the attribute he best brings. It's a positional advantage being a defenseman, and he is oozing with talent, but sometimes the old hat rack that he has here does not make the best decisions. That is why I think his goals above replacement is so low. That is why I think his advanced stats are low. My eye test tells me I love him one shift and hate him the next shift. He is very up and down, but that positional scarcity and that ceiling talent is what he brings. Tim Stutzle, it's a risk to pay a player at this price, at this young, but it is a risk that can pay off in spades because this could be the Draisaitl contract on this list. His talent is through the roof. He has transitioned from wing into center. Him and Josh Norris are going to compete for center 1 and center 1A. He can move up to the wing if you need him. He may be one of the most talented young players in the NHL, and this could be a 100-point guy, no problem. So to get him in at the contract they got him in, it is risk reward, but this is how you get contracts similar to what Nathan MacKinnon just won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. I love it. Robert Thomas, he's a center and he's a two-way center. This guy does everything. I understand his defensive stats said negative, but I have watched him in just as much detail as you can watch a player on the ice, and I really like his defensive game. I believe he's a leader, and I believe if he's not already, he's a future top 15 staple at the position. This guy is talent. Then you take a look at Jordan Kyrou, game-breaking speed. Speed's always in style. If you can skate like this guy, you are going to be elite for a long time. So yes, he may be 25 instead of Thomas, who's 23, but this guy has elite skating and it allows him to get a lot of chances. He's got talent elsewhere as well. He's only a winger. Wingers can be replaceable and they can be replaceable quick, but wingers with this speed don't come along every day. Josh Norris, he's a goal scorer. We already talked about the fact that he led the team in goals in terms of what he put in on a per game basis. He's absolutely stapled to be a top 30 centerman in the NHL. In my opinion, he has the ability to crack the top 15 in the future, but right now it's safe to say top 30. And then Tage Thompson, what does he bring? How about a 6'6" to 6'7" frame? He's an absolute monster. He's got top 45 center potential if he's not already there. He absolutely is top 30 potential. The challenge with this guy is this is his first year of scoring goals, and he's never had a great year at scoring up until right now. He's scoring at a clip based on his shooting percentage that is way higher than it should be, and there are a lot of names out there that I can list off to you that got paid big dollars and didn't return on that investment in a contract year. So Tage Thompson could be a risky play, could not be, but right now, based on what we saw last year, he's a big boy and he can score goals. So what is the overall risk summary to bust for these players? With Matthew Tkachuk, I think it's very low. We have enough proven commodity with Matthew Tkachuk. We've seen what he can do. This guy, worst case scenario, is one of the toughest in the league. The risk is low to this deal, even at $9.5 million. The risk to Laine is very high. He's had injuries before. He's attitude, one trick pony in my opinion. The risk to Mikhail Sergachev, also very high. He's unproven. He has not entered the list of names that you saw on the comparables at all. He is such the odd man out with that paid contract. So hopefully he grows into it and you get to breathe a sigh of relief. But this could be a very problematic deal for the Tampa Bay Lightning if it goes the other way. Tim Stutzle is a medium risk. I'd love to put this at low. I believe heavily in this player, but at the end of the day, he's only 21. He has the fewest amount of points on this team. You are paying because you are going to get such a payoff if this guy ends up hitting, and he is the highest talent ceiling out of this entire group. Robert Thomas is a low risk because he is a two-way prototypical #1 center. Bottom line, he is carved out of the model NHL coaches want and NHL teams love. Jordan Kyrou has a lower risk as well because he is elite skating, and elite skating is always in style when you add that talent to it, as well as the fact that, yes, he's a winger. That reduces his risk because there are 4 positions in the top 6 as opposed to 2. Josh Norris has a low risk to bust as well too. Again, that center premium comes in, and the fact that he's shown he can score goals, that's a pretty big deal. Worst case scenario, Jimmy Stutzle Tim Stutzle ends up taking the #1 center position away from Josh Norris. He just easily moves into center 2. The Ottawa Senators are building in the same mold other Stanley Cup winners and contenders have done, and that is to have 2 #1 centers on your team. So I see low risk for Norris. I see medium to high risk, though, for Tage Thompson because of the small sample size. His shooting percentage and his goal percentage off the shooting percentage doesn't really match right now. He's big. He's what every team drools over when it comes to a player, but I just haven't seen enough of it yet, both at the NHL level and during his university career before he moved over to the NHL. So this could be a medium to high level risk, but the fact that the contract's under $8 million does limit some of that. If it was over $8 million, I'd be putting this in the high category all day. So let's take it home with some contract grades. Tkachuk gets an A+. Thomas gets an A from me. Stutzle gets an A from me. Norris and Kyrou get B+. Tage Thompson gets a B. Sergachev gets a D. And Laine gets a D. Based on the risk, the return, the comparables, what I see from these players, this is how I'm ranking the 8 big young gun contracts this year. All right, Hot Garbage Sports fans, thanks for tuning back in. I hope this found you pleasantly surprised on your feed today. Sorry for the 3 to 4 week break, but we are back at it, and I can't wait to hear from you. Let me know down below if you like this content. Say hi, drop an emoji, and we will catch you again this week with more content.